congratulations once again, ma, on your new appointment. Well deserved, ma. And then I'm going to welcome virtually the Attorney General of Ogun State. I hope he's logged in. He's going to be joining us via Zoom, which is in line with the theme of this year's Pro Bono Week, digitization of access to justice. So everything digital is part of our plan. And then I'm going to invite Mr. Ahmed Adetola Kazim, the Director of Prisoners' Rights Advocacy Initiative, one of our most passionate partners and also a trustee of the Board of Trustees, PILP. You're welcome, sir. In fact, someone from his office, you might not have realized, was actually an actress in today's play. So I'm sure you may not have noticed the difference because she did it so well. So thank you for the support of PRI in our projects. And last but definitely not the least, she needs no introduction. We have Mr. Shola Shoyele. Any of you, like my dad, who watches Channels News 10 p.m. every day, I'm sure you recognize her from Channels TV. So the judiciary correspondent, please join us, our moderator. Thank you so much. So, okay, yes, we have him live. Hello, Mr. Adeniro. Please wave if you hear us. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Thank you so much. And I know he can say a lot on rule of law. He's the former head of rule of law, vice president's office as well. So welcome everyone and thank you. So I'm going to hand over the mic to the moderator.
Thank you very much, and I want to welcome everyone again to this evening's event without wasting much time because time is already far gone. I'm going to start with the Attorney General of Ogun State, who is joining us virtually. Honorable AG, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. I believe that you watched the stage performance.
Sadly, I really couldn't follow because the sound was not great from this end.
Okay, let me just quickly bring you up to speed. There were a lot of issues that were thrown up. The overburdened prison system that we have, the correctional facilities, the need to decongest, the fact that cases go on and on, cases are adjourned. We saw somebody whose case had been tied down for about 6 years plus. I mean, these are issues that you are familiar with. But what, in your view, let me start with what you consider the major obstacles to implementing alternatives to pre-trial detention, because there's a need to keep people out of that already congested system.
Thank you very much. Please permit me to stand on the already established protocol.
Honorable AG, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, please, because we don't have much time.
No problem.
Great.
No problem. First, I'll say one of the major obstacles, I'm only going to focus on 3 of them. There are many obstacles, but 3 of them. One is failure to intervene early enough. So when the police arrests a suspect and they place the person in police detention, that person doesn't have access to counsel, is unable to start making preparations for his case, is not able to get bail, and so ends up in the correctional centers. And that's a problem that we're trying to resolve by instituting what we are calling the Police Duty Solicitor Scheme, which we're actually launching next week throughout the state. It means that a duty solicitor is going to be attached to every police station, and their numbers will be publicized so that every person knows the solicitor to contact if they have any family member, known person, police detention facility. And that duty solicitor's job is to go there, ensure that people are not detained beyond the period they are meant to be detained constitutionally, that they have access to counsel, they are not tortured. And if there's a need to link them up with legal representative, they can do so through another project that we are starting, basically following from Lagos, our own public interest partnership, also to be formally launched next week. And this is the second problem, if I may, and that's the inadequacy of quality legal representation for defendants. And so if you do not have someone who is able to advise very quickly and give you an area of the options that are available for defendants who want to either settle their cases quickly or basically push through their defense so that they can get to the conclusion of their own matter. If they don't have legal representation, then there is a problem. Legal representation basically will help with many issues. The third obstacle is lack of reliable data. And I think even from what you're saying about the state play, this is one of the things that we're seeing when the different stakeholders in the justice sector, when they come together, they all have a role to play. And oftentimes, it's not the fault of one party, it's the combination of the interaction between the different stakeholders. Police have their role to play. The correctional centers, they have to take the defendants to court. Judges have to see. Prosecution have to bring their witnesses to court. The defense counsel also have to be present. And when we don't have reliable data to identify where the problem centers are, we sometimes focus our solutions in the wrong direction. And there are many things that are happening at federal level, at state level. Federal level, there's a correctional information management system which is being deployed, and we're now starting to utilize it and rely on it in the state. And this has a case management module that gives us the type of data that we're talking about here. In my ministry here, we have what we call Justice Clock. It also collects information as far as the Ministry of Justice is concerned, and then highlights cases as they come in, so I can see when they come into the ministry, so I can monitor their timelines. If they're basically taking too long, I can act immediately to ensure that we also keep time frame. So let me stop there, and if there are any additional questions, I'm happy.
Thank you, Honorable AG. Thank you so much. I'm going to come to you, Honorable AG Lagos. He talked about following a model that Lagos is already implementing. I know that Lagos recently announced the restorative justice policy, a pre-trial diversion and plea bargain tools as measures and alternatives to reducing the awaiting trial inmates. But tell us about it, briefly. What has been the success rate of that?
So, Lagos, the problems are, as big as they can be because of the population size, the number of cases, but we've achieved modest success, if I must say so. So, for example, restorative justice, our community service, between January 2019 to July 2021, they've diverted, I think, 5,406 cases that will have ended up in the correctional facilities, which I think is tremendous on their part. Because if you have 3,000 or so people or 2,000 people in Ikoyi right now, imagine if we had added that 5,000. So I think that's good, and we will intensify our efforts in that direction. We're also seeing that with plea bargain, all the applications we get are from the high courts. To my knowledge, there is none at all from magistrate courts. So we're focusing our attention on having a workshop for magistrates. So I think during the play we watched, there was the issue of how do you bypass, in quote, the charge and bail lawyers. So what we intend to do is to train the magistrates, give them awareness about plea bargain, so that when the defendants come to court, it is the magistrate sitting who then gives them that option, so that they know, the magistrate tells them, explains the process to them, and tells them, do you want to explore this option? Then we're also not just staying with the magistrates, we're also going straight into the correctional facilities. The DPP has done one. I'm scheduled to go for one, I think, later this month. I sit as the chairman of the plea bargain committee. So what we intend to do is to go in and tell all the inmates, look, what are your charges? Do you want to accept a plea bargain? The Attorney General, as chairman of the plea bargain can right here and now approve your plea bargain, so that in the case of Emmanuel Gaddafi, who has spent 6 years plus, if we accept a plea bargain and we've seen that he served even more than the time that he would have been sentenced under the reduced charge he will plead to, there and then I would approve it and it will be released in next to no time.
How often will these visits to the prisons be?
So for me it will be quarterly, but for the DPP it will be more often than that. So we're planning to, use plea bargain as a tool to champion the reduction of awaiting trial inmates in the prison. They're not really making as much use of it as they should, because you see somebody commits a misdemeanor, a minor offense, the lawyers who want to take advantage of the system tell him to plead not guilty. So for something that you could have done 3 months, his trial goes on for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So we want to nip that in the bud from the onset and see, get more people out from it's the play we saw. It's painfully embarrassing, honestly.
But these are the realities.
Yes, it's the reality. So, it behoves of us to do all that we can to turn the tail around, and I'm sure that we can do it.
Let me quickly ask you, what role is because we're talking about digitization of the process, what role is technology going to play, your works? But that play that we saw talked about the need for everybody to get involved in legislation. The AG talked about plea bargain and the fact that some defense lawyers are unwilling to even consider it. So what role can the NBA play? What are how can we get around all of this? What solutions would you suggest?
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to the solutions, we have to first look at the issues around that. In representation of defendants or inmates, as you may call it, there are different people representing them. First, you have the charge and bail lawyers, which are most times their first point of call. Once the policemen are bringing, they're the first people that come in contact with these inmates. Then you have those who are passionate about just representing for humanity's sake, just like what we do in our organization. Then you have another group. These are those probably in the commercial law firms and the likes who want to attain silk. So they want to become SAN, so they will take up some criminal cases. So when you look at these classes of people, these are like the major classes of people that represent inmates, because most times people don't really do criminal cases like that. Apart from the charge and bail people, then most people would look for things that are more lucrative. So when you look at these issues, now the mindsets are different. For us, we don't have any qualms in doing plea bargain. Because what we want, we have a lot of cases that we do ordinarily. So we want some of them to move fast. We don't care. The most important thing is justice and getting it as fast as possible. That is what is most important to us. But for the charge and bail lawyers, they have commercialized it. The more they go to court, they charge on per court basis. So they don't want the case to end. So that is one. And for those who want to attain silk, they know that it's when they get to trial that case will count in their favor. So before you start thinking of what the MBA would do, what are the incentives? So for instance, if you plea bargain, you have about 10 cases, and you plea bargain in 6, is there a gain for you? That is for those who want to attend this. So you need to address these issues. So in the criteria for becoming sick, so what will be done to ensure that the person who have represented an inmate and a plea bargain, how does it count in his favor? So these are some of the things that would ensure.
What do you suggest?
Well, what I suggest is that, of course, we know that the trial is the main thing. So it will be an injustice for somebody who have done a full round of trial to be at the same level with somebody who just plea bargain. So he has 10 cases he has plea bargain for. And of course, the trial is actually the test of the what's it called, the abilities of a lawyer. So you can have, instead of maybe about 4 plea bargain cases should be at the same level, maybe about just 1 trial or something of that nature, so that people can know that if I plea bargain, it will count in my favor. So that's one of the things that we need to really look at in ensuring that people, and for the charger bill, I think there's a need for us to do more for those, because those set of people are actually some of the greatest problem of the system. So there's a need for the NBA to do more, to have some watchdog for every branch of the NBA to be on the lookout of, because we have a lot of cases like that. Most of the cases that get to us are cases that you have heard about 1, 2, 3, charger bill lawyer fleece people. Sometimes they collect up to millions, and when they don't have money, that is when they get to us. Because they know, okay, there's business and advocacy that can do this case for free and they will get it done. So these are some of the issues that needs to be sorted out first before you start thinking of what the NBA will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof, let me come to you. Prof, what can we learn from foreign jurisdictions? What are the solutions that you can give? What are best global practices in dealing with issues like this?
Okay, thank you very much. Interestingly, today I will say that we're actually trying all the best global practices. They have been brought home and we're working at them. And we've talked about diversion, and diversion is what is largely used. You divert from the courts as much as possible. So you institute opportunities such as, mediation, even for criminal cases. Of course, you introduce guidelines to ensure that, in particular, those who are vulnerable do not have the traditional disadvantage, working against them in such settings. And that Lagos State, for example, tried to do. Even with the restorative justice, they were able to highlight the cases that should not go to restorative justice, for example, sexual offenses such as rape and things like that. So we are actually trying our hands at some of the best practices. Another is ensuring that cases that should not go to trial at all do not go to trial at all. And that requires a lot of vetting ahead of time. And I know that Lagos State again has introduced that beyond the DPP's advice, beyond the traditional, it's gone for DPP's advice, so that you do not go to court at all for what is not worth it and what is just going to keep people on the inside. Another global practice that we are actually trying our hands on, and which I think should work well for us, is incorporating the use of what you can call, it's something like what has happened, what the play or the project of Aardschap is trying to introduce, which is some form of paralegal services, some form of legal education, even for people, even the inmates, so that when they understand the system around it, then they're able to participate actively and make informed decisions. So it's not someone just tells you plead guilty or plead not guilty and that settles it. So some of that is going up, but we need to scale it up even more. We need to scale up that significantly. I'm quite happy because one thing I wanted to mention is exactly what the Honorable Attorney General mentioned now, which is that courts, magistrates must play a more active role in guiding, because our reality,
in the community, is that we can work our ballers, our KBSs, our baloguns, our mortgages into our legal system in such a way that they won't be just saying everybody should go. So we have some sort of rules guiding them to say this offense, that offense, you can handle and solve within the community. So I've been thinking about that and I felt that I should ask here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity. I believe we have in our law books right now a time limit within which somebody can be detained in a police station. Within a period that the police must present an offender to the courts, either magistrate court or whatever. And do we have in the law a provision by which the police can be brought to book, can actually be queried, can be charged for holding people beyond a certain, and is this being used right now? I'm quite interested in this.
Thank you, sir. We have a lot of lawyers on the panel that will answer. Just one more. Do we have any female that wants to ask?
Oh, okay. Can we say he really pleaded? Sorry, I know we are trying to.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Ikoyi. I run a theatre for rehabilitation program in Ikoyi prison and Ikoyi prison in Ibadan. So I feel like one part of the issue has not really been talked about. We're talking about overcrowding. I also feel like I've seen people go in and out of prison a lot, during my project. Who is responsible and what can be done about reintegration programs outside the prison when people get out? Is there anything that the government or any can do to have a place where they can be before they go into the real world? Because they are so used to crime, and when they get out there, they easily jump back to crime. So, I mean, what can be done about that?
Integration.
So like a halfway house, I would say.
Yes. I see a female over there.
Sorry, sir, I'm not allowed to take one more. I've been instructed not to take. Okay. Okay, is that asking on behalf of the female?
All right, we are grateful for this wonderful program and we commend the organizers. But a program like this without the Commissioner of Police and the Controller of Correction is not complete. Because the police is the first point of contact of an offender. And when you look at it, you see that most of the cases are exaggerated. Now, somebody hits me on my head. When I go to the police, it's not really investigated and they'll put attempts to kill. And they are fighting. I'm working with my boss and maybe I, made away with 1,000 naira and my boss complained and they'll put 4 million. An houseboy. And even the whole shop is not even up to 4 million. So, a problem like this, the police, Commissioner of Police should be here so that they should be free.
I don't know what we can do about that. Bail, issues of bail, cases of people who don't go to court for years and who are just abandoned in the correctional facility. These are some of the questions that also came up, that you can also address along with the questions we got here.
Let me also take the issue about why is the police commissioner of police not here, and why are the correctional services not here? So in Lagos State, there is the Administration of Criminal Justice Committee. It is chaired by the Chief Judge of Lagos State. The Attorney General is a member. The Controller of Correctional Services Lagos State is a member. The Commissioner of Police is a member. All the High Court judges who preside over criminal courts are members. The DPP, Lagos State, is a member. So at that committee level, the collaboration which you were talking about is very much present. We get that input. At the Ministry of Justice, we also collaborate with all agencies in the criminal justice sector space. We have several meetings with the correctional services, the police. We do a lot of training. We've sponsored quite a number of training, capacity building sessions for the correctional services, for magistrates, even for the police. We even train police prosecutors to avoid.
Working with Mr. Ikoyi. They actually did a lot, and it's one of the reasons why we have this today, because I knew that at that time I was just called to the bar and I had a lot of cases against the states, and there was this problem. They had to start fashioning out what to do to ensure that some of these issues do not arise, and that is the reason for the LPILP. And I was involved despite the fact that I appear to be an enemy of the state. So about 10 different cases in court and always in the news. But I felt that, okay, let's you know all these things, join us. So I was part of those who drafted the manual and also a board member. And it shows that they are forward thinking, and that is what is replicated in Ogun State now. And I can also confirm that of Lagos State, but as you have said, it's not enough. So we don't have perfect laws, but we have enough laws to tackle some of the issues we are raising. For instance, a lot of people have asked questions on the issue of overcrowding of correctional centers. In 2019, the Nigerian Correctional Service Act was passed. And there's a very profound section of that particular law, section 12, sub 4 to 12 of that particular law, which tends to ensure that the prisons are not overcrowded. So the controller of prisons has a role, the AG has a role, the CJ has a role. So the controller should, once he notices that the prison has, or the correctional facility has exceeded its capacity, he should send messages out to these other players. And at some point, maybe within a space of 1 to 3 months, he stops admitting people into the correctional facility. We might say, where are they going to go? Of course, that is, we'll be forced to use the non-custodial means. I know that this is not being done already. And we are pushing through different means, through advocacies like this. The AG is here. And in fact, currently we have a case in courts. Ideally, the judgment in that case should have been delivered today. Yes, it was, we filed it on behalf of inmates in Ikoyi prison, just as a test, to test the law. We sued the AG too. So it should, so it's just to test the law, and to show that we don't just have laws that do not work. For instance, we have the Nigerian Criminal Justice Act, Criminal Justice Law, but unfortunately these laws are beautiful laws, but they're just beautiful on paper. The actions are not being done. So we should move from just having laws, but to start implementing some of these laws. But unfortunately also, many of the innovations of the Aardschap and Criminal Justice Act are being struck down by the day by our courts, because probably the Constitution overrides or some of these laws. So I think that we should focus more. We have these laws. A lot is being done. But from these laws, what are we doing to ensure that this works? And also in the law also, we also have the law, now the prison has 2 arms. You have the custodial service and you have the non-custodial service. I was with the head of the non-custodial a few days ago, and he mentioned the issue of funding. So the laws are there, but the apparatus to make them work is not there. There's no funding for it. So these are some of the things that we should address. And I believe that many of the stakeholders here, I know that Mr. Ikoyi is in the presidency. I know that the AG is here, they have where they meet up. I think that they should speak more on how to ensure that we don't just have laws that are just there on paper. Thank you very much.
But where's the weakest chain though?
Well, it depends on the particular case. You understand? So you have the police there, but some of the excesses of the police can actually be curtailed. You have the remand proceedings. The magistrate is there. The magistrate is in charge of that proceedings. He determines after 60 days, he should make a decision whether to release or, if there are good reasons, except there are very cogent reasons why somebody should be held. He should not stay in the prison more than 60 days. It has been in the ACJL since 2007 when it was initially. So some of these things are not working. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prof, there was a question about reintegration that we haven't touched on. So we want to hear your thoughts on that.
Reintegration is very critical to prison decongestion, because we also know that recidivism is high. That is the rate at which people return to crime. And we have sufficient evidence that sometimes people return to crime because of what they experience in prison, either because they learn new skills and whatever, or sometimes they get bitter. If someone is in prison for 6 months and gets emotionally damaged because he or she feels that is unfair, we had the feedback from the statement says, if you are going to sentence us, if you're going to convict us and let us start, paying for it. If you're not going to release, that is a message of someone that is like bordering on, frustration. After some time, the person no longer feels remorse, the person even feels angry. So reintegration is really very important. Even during the period of holding a person who is not yet an offender, a lot needs to be done. I know that in our system, it's because of our federal system and the way everything is worked. So you get the prison system is supposed to be the correctional services system is supposed to be federal, but now it also takes together both the custodial as well as the non-custodial. But is it getting adequate funding? The issue is Lagos State also must take on the issue of reintegration very seriously. The reality...
That is the role of the Attorney General now?
No, well, not exactly, but the Attorney General can at least, he can put pressure on the system to do better. Well, Lagos State did do something because ordinarily community service officers are not officers of the Ministry of Justice. They ought to be officers of the court or maybe officers in the social welfare department. But when the Ministry of Justice identified that gap, but I think we need to go back to probation. Honorable Attorney General, when the community service was about to start, I was actually part of those who, and when we were going to do the training, we went to social welfare department and I saw on a door, Director of Adult Corrections. And I was astounded because I know that I haven't heard of any adult corrections in that sense in Lagos State. It must mean that some people are employed for adult corrections, but really adult corrections refers to non-custodial corrections, and things like that, knowing as we do that the custodial institutions are within federal. So I think it will be very important to find out what is there. I said as far back as then that I felt that there has to be, I don't know whether the social welfare department is in the Lagos State Administration of Criminal Justice, the committee you just described. I think you need to get them on because that's where probation will come in. That's where, and then the idea of halfway houses, because sometimes